I'm in Rogers, Arkansas, in a hotel room, obviously. And if you clicked on this video, you may either be a new viewer to this channel that is wondering how do you find a ghost town, or maybe you've watched other videos on my channel and you are curious as to maybe my process of finding a ghost town. And so in this video, I'm gonna show you what I go through to kind of figure out where I might go on a trip, but also I'm gonna go to some of these towns. So if you're here looking for some ghost towns, we're gonna have a few, and also just kind of give you a little bit of the, I guess you'd say, behind the scenes of the research or how I would go about doing that. So I'm in Arkansas, and one way I try to find places is actually using real maps. And so this is a Delorme Atlas and Gazetteer. If you've watched my videos before, you've seen me take a highlighter to these and map out routes to places I go. So this is a great resource because it not only does it have current towns, it has places that don't exist anymore, maybe places where there used to be a post office or a town. So these are good. Another resource is like Google Map, Google Earth. If you are more on the technological side of things, if you feel comfortable doing those things, so you can get to the place where you're at or the place you want to go and just kind of scroll around that area and see if there's anything that looks interesting, and then you can change that into the Google Earth so you can see what actually buildings might be there or if there's anything there at all. So those are a couple other ways to get started. I did a video a while back with my buddy Kurt on what is a ghost town, and we went through all these different parameters of what is or isn't considered a ghost town. And in short, it's there's multiple definitions, but it's either a town that's totally abandoned or maybe a place that's just a fraction of what it used to be. So the first thing I'm going to look at is Wikipedia. I know a lot of people give Wikipedia a hard time, but it does have some good information. We're going to check out Ash Ridge, Ohio. This is a community that I grew up near. It's just a few miles down the road from the farm that I grew up on in Ohio. So I use this as an example of if I was going to go wanting to maybe check out Ash Ridge. So it has some basic information. Sometimes it has more, sometimes it has less, but it talks about that Ash Ridge was an unincorporated community. So that's a clue. That's a good sign if we're looking for ghost towns. It was originally called Carlisle. That's nice information. Under the latter name was platted in 1834, and post office established in 1846 until 1906. So we found that from 1846, or basically 1834 to 1906, it was a community. And then for some reason the post office wasn't there anymore. And hey, there's my school that I went to from kindergarten through the 4th grade. There you go. That was a very formative time for me. Pretty cool that they got that photo there. So that's maybe the first thing that I would look at. And then another thing I would, with the post office information, I would go to this website. It's the Jim Fort Postal History website, and it's called postalhistory.com. And I go over here to post offices, and I know I obviously got some information about the post office already, but I'm going to go and see if it's just kind of like checks out. So Brown County in Ohio and Ash Ridge, obviously alphabetically. And we find out that it's actually is Ash Ridge 2 words and then Ash Ridge 1 word for some reason. A lot of times that's a just kind of an error by the postal employee. They end up just shortening it instead of having it as 2 words. And so that's kind of an interesting little information that the actual post office changed names there. Now, what was it called again? It was Carlisle. Okay, so look down here at Carlisle. It doesn't have anything about Carlisle in here. So sometimes these websites are consistent with each other. Sometimes they're not. So you never know. Let's go to Google and see what Ash Ridge looks like from here. So you can see there's a little dot on the map. And what you can do is you can go down here and click this little icon, and it'll bring up a little street view. And so we can kind of cruise around. Not every place has street view available, but there you go. So if I know this community very well, so if we go on down this way, I'll show you where the school is. Almost there, and there's the school on the right. So, and you could cruise around if you want to see information or want to see what's all here. Some pretty trees that must have been in the fall. So then if you want to get, even a little bit more information, you can go to Google Earth, and there's Ash Ridge on Google Earth. I actually grew up right over here, just a little bit down the road from Mount Olivet Community Church. So yeah, right about there would have been our farm. But anyways, we can kind of zoom in here on Ash Ridge, and it'll be similar to what we might have just saw with Google, but a little different perspective. And oops, sorry about that. And there's Ash Ridge, and the school is right down here. And you can see there's not really much left. So we don't know a whole lot about the history of it still. So if you want to know more history, I just go on to Google and start searching Ash Ridge, Ohio history. You can use different web browser or web search engines, but there's the Wikipedia article. You can go to, here's a website with a bunch of, genealogy information, and obviously you can really get into the weeds about some things with Ash Ridge. And then usually nowadays there's some AI stuff. So here's an AI overview, and it talks about being platted as Carlisle and adopted its name when the post office opened doors. So it was called Carlisle in 1834, but didn't have a post office. So that is actually consistent with kind of the things we're reading here. And you can see the source is Wikipedia. And then it has a little bit more, talks about, kind of Brown County, where it's located. And then from that genealogy website, it has pulled through a little bit more information. So I usually don't get this deep into the research until after I've gone to the town and kind of when I'm editing, but maybe you'd want to know more information before you get there. So yeah, there's a little bit of the tools that I would use to try to figure out if it's worth visiting or not. So I'm starting here in Rogers, Arkansas today, and we're going to go on Highway 12 kind of this way. And so I started looking for dots on the map. So there's Prairie Creek. There's something called Beacon Addition. It's probably some sort of housing community. You can keep going. There's like LaRue up that way. War Eagle, Lookout, Rock. You can drop down Clifty. So several different dots on the map, and I have no idea what any of them are. Let's go out and see what we might find. I kind of like not knowing a lot about the places I'm going. I like to find it out as I go. So some places might end up being nothing, and some places might, be a little bit of a hidden gem. So let's go head out on Highway 12 and see what we can find. One of the great things about finding ghost towns is usually on the back roads, and sometimes it's very scenic. So I'll be showing you a lot of scenic driving back roads on Highway 12 today. So let's look up Prairie Creek. This is the first dot we're going to go through, and what it says is a census designated place. Now that means it's unincorporated. It has a population of 2217, and usually what that means is that it's not necessarily a historical, it can be a historical place, but often it's just an area that has a little bit more population, so they've organized it into what's called a census designated place. You can, click on that and it'll go, tell you a little bit more about it. So we're not quite sure what this is. It doesn't have much information about it. If I go to the post office website, there's nothing for Prairie Creek. So then when I look at the Google map of it, I see that this is Prairie Creek right here, and it's right on a lake. So you can see the lake over here. This is Beaver Lake. And so now I'm gathering that mostly it's probably just a community for supporting the lake just east of Rogers there. So probably not much to see. If we go on Google Earth, this is the road. This is Highway 12. It goes through it. There's a couple buildings, so maybe we'll pass through just to see if there's anything there, but not holding out too much hope for a ghost town. And here is Prairie Creek. It's an interesting little community. I like that building right there on the left. But definitely not a ghost town, as we saw in the info. A couple thousand people live in this community, so someplace I might want to explore on a different type of video, but if we're looking for ghost towns, we're going to pass right on through Prairie Creek. Next up is War Eagle, and this one looks promising. It's unincorporated, and it has some variant names. Post office open and closed, and there's a picture, looks like a little mill there, so that's great. Over to the post office, we see that it was named War Eagle Mills, and then it was changed to War Eagle, one word, and then they had a rural post office there, kind of usually just for kind of the community when it's not much of a town anymore. And then looking at the map, Google Maps, they have this mill. This is kind of a landmark, kind of a icon there, so that's great. Looks like they have some sort of a fair. Not sure what that is. So at this point, I'm pretty much, sure, like this is something we're going to be interested in. Here's the Google view, and you can see there's the mill and the river. So, definitely excited to see what War Eagle is all about. This is that dot on the map earlier that we saw. It was Beacon Addition, and there's a cool looking building right there, but other than that, there's really nothing here. Couldn't find anything online about it, so probably just a name for the local housing community. Down some scenic driving roads. This is War Eagle. We're greeted with an old building right there. And you can see there's going to be this parking lot right here in front of us. And this is what you might refer to as a historic ghost town. And it's kind of built around some level of tourism. And you can see you got a mill and an old bridge right there. We got a little history of the mill. This was originally built in 1832. They've redone it a little bit on the National Register of Historic Places. It's War Eagle Creek right here. And so that's obviously the historic part of the old community. It was also named Blackburn Mill originally. And so it's a local grist mill. Post office was established in 1876. And then it closed in 1967. So inside the mill, they have a gift shop, some old equipment there, and if you want to buy some postcards and whatnot. Second floor, more gift shop items. Got t-shirt collection. Actually got one of those on this trip, and then you can go up to the third floor, and they have a restaurant. So quite a little attraction here. Got an old cash register, and the name there belonged to the Earp family, Wyatt Earp's family. Interesting. So take a little walk across the bridge. This particular bridge was built in 1907. I like how they have the names of the people that built it there. And so when I go to ghost towns, this is what you do. You just kind of walk around and see what's there. And then you'll see like an old building right there. Don't know if that has any historical significance. And they have a sign here talking about War Eagle Mills, a little about history of the community. This does appear to be a historical building, the Blackburn Homestead. And like I said, it was called the Blackburn Mill earlier, so obviously named after the Blackburn family. And then right on the other side of the street, the War Eagle Fair. It's a arts and crafts fair called the War Eagle Fair. Started in 1954. A little more information about the farm where the fair is. I like that old barn with the War Eagle on the side. And that's pretty much the tour. And one thing I am able to do is take my drone up, and that'll give me a little more perspective on the town. So sometimes I might take my drone up to see what other things might be around the community. Obviously, very beautiful area here. You can see the different buildings where the fair is located and how the bridge runs right over the creek with the mill there. Then I take a little flight over there to see what might be on top of the hill. Looks like just a couple farms, but that's the road we're gonna take out of town. Let's head up to that dot on the map lookout, just to the northeast of War Eagle. And I pulled up, and there's a station there, the lookout station. I couldn't find anything online. I'd done some of that research I did earlier with some of the other towns, and really couldn't find much of anything. It's kind of at the intersection of a couple of roads here, and so maybe it was just a convenience stop. And that's kind of an interesting looking older building. But yeah, there's where the two roads connect, and like an old gas station possibly right there. The buildings don't look too old, so it's possible it's a fairly modern community. There's a couple kind of barns and other things in the area, so possibly it's at the kind of peak of some geography, so maybe that's why it was called Lookout. Maybe it has some sort of historical connection, but like I said, I couldn't find much. There is this Lookout store here. It's been closed, but another building with the name Lookout on it. Just down the road from Lookout, there's Rock, and you can see we're going into Madison County. Couldn't find much about Rock, except it did have a post office from 1910 to 1929, and there was a church on Google Maps. So when I pull up, there's the church, and that was the only thing I could find. It was right next to a house, so I didn't want to pull into their driveway. But I'm guessing that's maybe an old church in Rock, Arkansas. No other information to be found. Let's try one more place, as we're going to go on 127 and then go back down on 12 down to Clifty. And between here and there, let's get some scenic driving. Clifty is going to be our final community today, and this is what I would consider a ghost town. There's probably a few people still living here, and in fact, I'm sure there is, but a lot of abandoned places, certainly a fraction of what it used to be, maybe a tenth or even less than that of what it used to be. You see some abandoned buildings as we're coming into town, and the Clifty General Store has seen better days. Like they had a gas station here for a while, Conoco. That's obviously more of a modern looking one, but it's gone as well. And so Clifty was named after cliffs, like the formation of cliffs here in the Ozarks. So kind of a clever way to honor that. And there was a baseball Hall of Famer named Arky Vaughan that was born in Clifty. So Arky was born in Clifty. So that's kind of what it's known for. There's quite a bit of information online if you want to find out more about Clifty. There's pretty good history here, and You can see the church, and then there's a cemetery, the Clifty Cemetery. And so kind of has everything. It has abandoned houses, it's got a cemetery and a church, and as you can see, as we drive up the hill, there's actually going to be a second cemetery. And just up the street is the Upper Clifty Cemetery. My guess is they probably were running out of room in the Clifty Cemetery and needed a little more space up here on top of the hill. Interesting looking landmark there at the Upper Clifty Cemetery. Looking at the drone footage, you can see we're at the Upper Clifty Cemetery, and right there below us, that's the Clifty Cemetery, and heading down the hill to the community of Clifty. You can see where the gas station was, and that there's just a scattering of homes in the area. That's beautiful Highway 12. I'm sure that would be a real scenic drive someday. There's some old buildings here in the trees. Not sure. They had a bit of I think a poultry industry around here, so I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it, but it kind of looks abandoned as well. There's a good shot of the entire community. Kind of at the top up there, I think that's the rural fire station area. So there you go. That's how I look for ghost towns. Nothing really special. Everything you could use. And, found a couple cool places. War Eagle, I mean, that's a historic place. That's very cool. And, Clifty is very interesting. You can see that it's not any type of a tourist place like War Eagle, but there was some history here. And almost for, a similar duration in terms of post office as War Eagle. And then some of the other ones, there were things that were surprising, like Lookout had a little bit more than Rock, and Rock had a post office and Lookout didn't. So you never know what you're going to find, and it's kind of the fun is the the journey as you're just trying to figure it out as you go. So that's why I don't always like to know everything about a place that I'm going before I go there. I did a video kind of like this where I visited a town in Idaho, I think it was called Grasmere, and I kind of went through the process of what I think about when I'm visiting the town, so a little bit different than this one. So if you're interested, you might look back at that. That's from several years ago, before anybody was probably watching my channel. So, but I hope you enjoyed this. And there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of great books. I started my ghost town adventuring by reading Daniel Fitzgerald's books on Kansas ghost towns, and there's great ghost town books from all over the country. So if you're interested in it, it's a fun and educational hobby, and definitely if you do so and I continue to do so, next time I might see you down a back road. Welcome to a hotel room in Arkansas. I don't know why that's so funny. What's up?